me, Vicky Marie, again. And good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. So I've come on a little bit earlier than I was expecting to. I just want to talk about the monarchy, about what's happening with Andrew, and the rest of the royal family. And I want to put over my points of what I think or hope is going to happen now. And first of all, I just want to say this woman, Virginia, she was the one that was brave enough to speak up for all the victims of Epstein. This is when Andrew abused her. This is what she looked like, how young she was, 17 years old, trafficked, had her head turned by, meeting royalty, etc. Epstein, all is dazzled by his money, etc. Virginia was just an ordinary girl at the time, and of course the infamous photo. This is the infamous photo that really damned Andrew all those years ago, that Epstein took probably as a lever for blackmail. Because, Jeffrey Epstein, come on, we want the Epstein files. There'll be videos, there'll be photos, there'll be all sorts of things. This man was a blackmailer. He set up a lot of rich and famous men, and all that information is somewhere. Now, let's not forget that the only person in prison at the moment regarding the Epstein files is Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, she's not the only person who did anything wrong. She did something wrong. Oh, just see here that they were, at Queenie's Lodge there. She's the only one in prison. Nobody else is in prison. All this with Andrew. Why is he not in prison? Why is he not going to prison? Why is Ghislaine in prison and he isn't? I'm not saying she shouldn't be in prison. She should be in prison. But so, Andrew, you feel like what's happening here is the royal family, Charlie Boy, Willie, all of them, scrambling round to try and save their own reputation. They're throwing Andrew under a bus, but they're not throwing him that far under a bus. They're not. He's not going to be prosecuted, is he? He's not going to be forced to give evidence or do anything like that. Do they really think this is going to be enough? It's not enough. It's not enough. And the other thing is, why is Andrew being given a home in Sandringham? Supposedly Charlie Boy's going to pay for it. Who gives Charlie Boy his money? Where does he get his money from? So he's going to pay for it. And why is he paying for it? You think about how Prince Harry was treated and Meghan when they decided, because of various circumstances. I know a lot of people don't like Harry or Meghan. I don't understand that at all. What did they do wrong except get fed up of the poisonous situation at the palace? A lot of that poisonous situation at the palace is because of Shamila. Shamila is a very, very, she's like the witch of the royal family, isn't she? And you know what? Talk about karma. All she wanted was to be queen, Shamila, didn't she? She wanted to be queen. She threw Lady Diana, Princess Diana under the bus many times. And she wanted to be queen, didn't she? And she got her wish because she's now described as queen. She's not queen. She's not queen. She's a woman she's an adulterous woman. And don't get me wrong, I'm not, I'm not, it's just that she sets herself up above everybody else. Have people forgotten what happened years ago, how Diana was treated like a broodmare and just really, that was practical PDF for me. Charles was 31 or whatever. Diana was, 17, 18, 19. Not much difference. What's the difference between Charles and Andrew? I don't think there is any difference, personally. I think Charles is a horrible person, and his choice of a wife proves exactly that. Anyway, we're going to look also at another PDF that Charles has protected. Not this one. You know, this is one he had a good relationship with. All the royal family had a good relationship with this PDF. He got knighted, didn't he? Are the royal family just really bad judges of character? Or are they so impressed by people that are rich and famous that they don't really care about the, what they get up to? Here's another one, even Queenie, painting the portrait of the Queen. Nobody's talking about that, are they? The royal family's links with PDFs goes deep. Here's Mountbatten, Louis Mountbatten. Now Andrew has got part of his name in his name. He's going to be known as why have they put Mountbatten in there? Everybody knows he was a PDF. So honestly, I think the royal family is disintegrating in front of our eyes. And you know what? I'm really glad there it is. And the woman that started it all off, and I'm just so sorry that she's not here to see it all happen. A family have said an ordinary girl has finally made people see the royal family for what it is. I've always felt the same about them, but I think a lot of people were quite blind with the royal family. She exposed the lies. Here's the man who doesn't sweat, never sweat. No, he can't possibly, he doesn't sweat, can't sweat. All the lies. Now, Charlie Boy, he's only just stepping up now. How long has this been known about? Years. Why is Charlie now saying that he can't be called a prince anymore? Why didn't he say this ages ago when it all first came out? And more importantly, just how many PDFs in normal life just get to say, oh, well, we just give you a rap on the knuckles. You can't call yourself a prince anymore. But you're not going to prison. You're not going to get prosecuted. You're not going to have to cooperate with the inquiry because there's lots of other victims out there. It wasn't just Virginia, was it? Virginia's the most she's the one who spoke up and the bravest one. She created and she was called a liar. She was reviled. She was horrible, given death threats, etc. And of course she died this year. She took her own life, didn't she? Did she? She supposedly HUNG herself in her remote place where she lived in Australia. That'll always be a mystery, I think. So why did Charlie Boy not act before? Does he only act when he feels that he has to? Now he knows that how unpopular not only Andrew is, but the whole royal family. Now they've just had a GB poll. Good Morning Britain poll. 53% of British people that joined in the poll think the monarchy should be abolished. That's never happened before. There's never been more than 50% of British people have wanted the monarchy to be abolished. That's like music to my ears because I've always wanted them to be abolished. They're parasites. They're just elite. Do you know how many homes has Prince Charles got? Charlie Boy got? How many? As soon as Andrew moves out of one home, they can always rustle up another home for him to live in. Do you know what I mean? How many homes does Charlie Boy have? And you know what? Even Willie Boy and Prissy Kate, they're coming in for criticism, aren't they? They've been off skiing when Kate was so ill because of her cancer diagnosis that stopped everybody talking about what was going on in their marriage, because obviously when someone has cancer, nobody's going to criticize them. Turns out she was, jetting around skiing all over the place. So then Willie, he's got his scandals, hasn't he? His affairs, his Prince of Pegging tag. They're all as bad as each other. It's not just Andrew. It's not just not just Fergie. They're taking all the flack for the whole rottenness of the royal family. Edward, There were scandals about him. There's been scandals about all of them. And there they sit on their gilded thrones telling everybody to lead a simple life while they're living in opulence, luxury, riding around in golden carriages when people haven't got food to feed their children, or they haven't got money to heat their homes. This is the reality of a monarchy, an old-fashioned monarchy like this one. It's not a modern monarchy. So how many homes does King Charles have? Let's see. "15 homes. A guide to all King Charles's homes from Buckingham Palace to a guest house in Romania." So I knew he had a house in Romania because I had a Romanian student who told me about it. I didn't know before that. So, when this Town and Country, a peek into King Charles's real estate portfolio. And don't forget these homes that he's got: Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle, Palace of Holyrood House, Balmoral, Sandringham. He's purchased a $3 million estate, $3.8 million estate located next to Queen Camilla's Raid Mill house. She's not the fucking queen. Highgrove House. No, I'm going to go through these one day in a video. I haven't got time in this video. Dumfries House. Balmoral, of course, yeah. Burke Hall. Sandringham Estate. This is this is where he's sending Andrew. So this is Andrew's punishment. Let's have a look. Here's Andrew's punishment. He's got oh poor Andrew. Oh, poor thing, he's got to go and live on the Sandringham Estate. Oh, bless Diddums. Oh, how will he ever recover? Yeah. Castle of May, the Old Mill, the Blue House. Oh, this is the one in Romania. Yeah, send him there. Let him go live in Romania, Transylvania. There's a land guest house in Romania. Oh, he's got 2 properties in Romania. Oh my God. Hillsborough Castle, Dolphin House. I can't pronounce this one. Sorry, Welsh people. But it's got one in Wales as well. So he had a big choice of where he could send Andrew. But instead of sending him to one of the smaller properties, he's sending him to the Sandringham Estate. This is where he's going. That's a punishment. Oh my God. And he could, and he threw, Frogmore Cottage, which I think is on the Windsor Estate, is it? He threw his own son out of there, told him he couldn't live there anymore. But his paedophile brother is sending him off to live at Sandringham. He didn't tell Harry and Meghan they could go and live at Sandringham, did they? They withdrew their protection, their security protection. But they haven't withdrawn Andrew's security protection. Honest to God, the hypocrisy is just unbelievable. I'm going to do a special video about Charlie Boy's properties. And we're supposed to feel sorry for Andrew because he's being thrown out of one mansion and sent to another one. And Charlie Boy's paying for it, he says. But where's he getting his money? The only reason he's got any money is because he is royal family, British royal family. And meanwhile, he's got 15 homes where there's homeless people, veterans, people who fought for Britain, sleeping on the streets in Britain. And he's got 15 properties all over the world. And he tells us to lead us a bloody simple life. Honest to God, I'm livid with it all. I don't, if he thinks it's all going to end here, I think he's mad. So let's have a look at another paedophile. that he's protected for years. The Peter Ball, he was a bishop, and he was Prince Charles interfered with his he was Prince Charles at the time. He interfered with the inquiry into this guy. He spoke to the police and asked them not to investigate him. You know, Charles, what do these PDFs know about Charles that he feels that he has to protect them? You know, you've got Jimmy Savile, Rolf Harris, this guy, high profile PDF. And this here is where he was photographed with him. He was the Bishop of Gloucester. Because, you know, the church is full of him as well. And they're all in it together, in my opinion. I think, honestly, the reason that Andrew will not go to prison and that Charles is even has protected him all these years and will carry on protecting him because he won't go to prison or anything, is because Andrew knows where the bodies are buried. He'll know things about Charles. You know, he'll know about the relationship with Camilla and, you know, all the horrible things that Charles has done over the years. He's not a nice man. Charles is not a nice man. He talks a good talk. Oh, he's all eco-friendly this. He's bloody jetting off in his private jet to Romania and other places, or he's off in he took his car, his Bentley, when he visited the Vatican. He flew that over to the Vatican. Haven't they got cars in Italy? You know, why did he have to fly his own car over there? You know, just like Trump does, like the American president does. Trump, they always fly over there. The beast, is it called, that big? But, you know, Charles is always bleating to us about how eco-friendly he is. He's not eco-friendly. Only he wants you to be eco-friendly so he can do what the FUC likes. You be eco-friendly, you know, you think about your carbon footprint. He doesn't give a shit about his carbon footprint. You know, he just wants to do, you know, he just, honest to God, it's unbelievable. So this is an article from the BBC from a while ago, 27th of July 2018. Now, this was all swept under the carpet. The Prince of Wales has told an inquiry he did not seek to influence a police investigation into a pedo bishop. Well, he did. A written submission from the Prince was read to an inquiry into the abuse inflicted by former Bishop Peter Ball. And Prince Charles said he felt deep personal regret. Oh, yeah, they always feel deep personal regret when they get caught out. Yeah, where was his regret? You know, now this statement that they've released about Andrew, saying, oh, they feel for the victims and blah, 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 blah. You know, only now? Why did he not feel for the victims years ago when Andrew came out and did that car crash interview, or when other things came out? The only reason Charlie Boy and Shamila, you know, that I presume was supposed to be a joint statement, because they said, oh, they're majesties. They're majesties. How ludicrous is that in this day and age? They're not majesties. They're not, you know, they weren't designed by God to rule. That's what people used to think in the Dark Ages, that kings were destined by God to rule. We don't think that now. Everybody, he's just a person who just happened to be lucky that he was born to be Prince Charles. He could have been born in Gaza. You know, where you're born, it's just a matter of luck. He's not designated by God to be king. For God's sake, it's ridiculous. Honestly, anyway, the good news is that people are seeing it now for what it is, and that is good. Because young people, of course, as well, growing up, you know, you'll always get the die-hard royalists, and if you are one of them, I'm so sorry, I'm probably really offending you, but sorry, but it's the truth, and I have to speak my truth. He's not a special person. He's just someone who was lucky enough to be born into the royal family, same as Andrew. He's entitled, he's privileged, he's a spoilt brat. Charlie Boy could not bear that Diana was more popular than him. He hated it. That's why I like Shamilla, because she walks a couple of steps behind him and she lurks in the background. That's what he wants. He's the big I am. Diana was too popular. She was too popular and he hated every minute of her popularity. Instead of, embracing it, and it could have made him, he could now be, so much more popular as a king if he wasn't married to Shamilla, and if he would have stayed with Diana and, got rid of Shamilla, but he wouldn't, would he? Because Diana was just too popular. So he said he felt a deep personal regret for trusting Bull when initial reports of abuse emerged, years before he was jailed in 2015. And in a 1997 letter, the prince said of a critic of this bishop. So this bishop, it was coming out about him what an abuser he was. And Charles said, "I'll see this horrid man off if he tries anything." About the man that was trying to expose this guy as a paedophile, Charles supported him. So it's not the first time with Andrew that he's supported a paedophile. He always supports them. Makes you wonder why, doesn't it? You can always judge a man by the company he keeps. And I still think that his marriage to Diana wasn't much more than PDF, because she was so young, he was so old, he was already having an affair with another woman. He had he never loved Diana. He married her just to have children. That's it. Didn't love her ever. That's the sort of man Charlie Boy is. And, the fact that he's with Camilla and she's such a witch as well. She's a nasty person. She's the stirmongerer at the castle, at the palace. She's the one that stirs things up against William and Meghan. She didn't like Meghan. She didn't like William. Because there again, she just has to be in complete control of everything. She's a horrible person. Anyway, in a series of letters between Prince Charles and the bishop, read to the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse, Ball spoke of a malicious campaign against him and harassment by fraudulent accusers. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound like Andrew, the sort of things that Andrew was saying? Denies any wrongdoing, malicious campaign. Virginia Goofy, she's a liar. I've never met that woman. Sound familiar? In a letter to Ball in 1995, the prince said, "I wish I could do more." So this is a letter to the PDF. "I feel so desperately strong about the monstrous wrongs that have been done to you." So the thing is, either Charles is thick as mince or he's just got no judgment whatsoever. So how many PDFs has he, buddied up to? Savile, Harris, Andrew, Epstein, and now this guy as well. So either the royal family are thick and just got no judgment, or they're somehow involved in everything. So, yeah. In 1997, he wrote a letter in which he described an apparent accuser, so someone who'd been abused by this bishop, as a ghastly man, up to his dastardly tricks again. So Peter Ball wasn't a dastardly man up to his dastardly trick, a ghastly man up to his dastardly tricks. No, the person that was claiming to have been abused by him, they were the bad person, according to Charlie Boy. So in 2015, the bishop, who was 86, so you know what, he got away with it for years. He was finally jailed for 32 months. I mean, he's probably dead now, I don't know, for offences against 18 teenagers and men. And you can bet 100% that those 18 people he was jailed for offences against are a tip of an iceberg, because there's no way that man got to 86 and only abused 18 teenagers and men. Impossible. In the written submission read by the counsel to the inquiry, Fiona scolding, the prince said he had been misled. Oh, a bit like Andrew. Oh, poor Charlie boy. Been misled. And at the time, there was on my part a presumption of good faith in relation to Ball. Whatever. He said, I first became aware of Peter Ball during the 1980s. He was later appointed Bishop of Gloucester, and he became my local diocesan bishop. Peter Ball told me he had been involved in some sort of indiscretion, which prompted his resignation as my local bishop. He emphasised that one individual, that I now understand to be Neil Todd, had made a complaint to the police, and that the police had investigated the matter, and the Crown Prosecution Service had decided to take no action. The sequence of events seemed to support his claim that the complaint emanated from one individual, and that individual bore a grudge against him and was persecuting him, that the complaint was false, but that the individual had nonetheless profited from the complaint by selling his story. Events later demonstrated beyond any doubt, to my deep regret, that I, along with many others, have been misled. Now, you're talking about someone in his position couldn't find out what was really going on. Do you believe that? I don't believe that either. Have you noticed that after a couple of weeks of saying, oh no, the king can't possibly remove Andrew of his title because he's a prince and the king has no power to blah de blah de blah de blah de blah de blah, suddenly he's removing him of his title. It's not going through Parliament. I mean, even just the fact he's just doing it without going to Parliament over it, or, he's not supposed to have any power, is he? So he has. He's got bloody loads of power. Anyone who thinks he hasn't got all this power and that we live in a democracy and all this rubbish, you try, if you're one of your family, if your brother, your father, your son was accused of paedophilia, you try, see if you could just move him to a house out in the country, away from everywhere. No criminal investigation, no prison, no trial. Do you think you could do that? That's what he's doing. So anyone who thinks that the royal family or Charlie boy is legitimate or doesn't abuse his power, it's crap. He's abusing his power by protecting Andrew. Why is Ghislaine in prison and he's not? And what about all the other people as well that abused these girls? Ghislaine is the only one in prison. Nobody else has gone to prison. Andrew hasn't even been interviewed about it from the police. It's all corrupt, all of it. So the prince said in the 1980s and 90s there was a presumption that, oh my God, the irony. There was a presumption that people such as bishops could be taken at their word. And as a result of the high office they held, they were worthy of trust and confidence. Bit like kings, isn't it? Bit like kings and princes and people like that. They say it must be true because King Charles says it. Must be true because the fake Queen Shamila says it. They're the more likely to be bad people because absolute power corrupts absolutely. You imagine, look at Diddy and people like that, people with all the money. They've got, the thing is, even if there were people in normal life who quite wanted to do the things that Andrew did, they would have quite liked to have had a girl trafficked to them. They can't afford it, so they can't do it. But people who've got loads of money, they can do what they want, and they do. They do. Not all of them. Not all of them are corrupt, of course. Same in the police force or in any walk of life. But Charlie Boy's record of protecting PDFs and the royal family in general, their association with lots of different PDFs. I mean, even Donald Trump, they just had him over for a big gala. He's a convicted sex offender. For goodness sake, when they talk about woke, when are people going to wake up to all this? You know, stop looking sideways and blaming everything on immigrants or trans people or, you know, homosexuals or single parents or everybody else's fault. Look up. Look up at what's going on up above you. These people are corrupt to the core. It's endemic. And he said, throughout my life, my position has occasionally brought me into contact with prominent people who have subsequently been accused of serious wrongdoing. Oh my God, it's like a Little Britain sketch. Rather than rushing to private judgment, I have always taken the view that the judicial process should take its course. What a load of cojones. Because you know what? He could investigate into things and find out the truth as easy as anything. So as I say, it's either lack of judgment, he's thick as two short planks, or he's complicit in some way. It's one of these things. You know, remember we were saying one time is an accident, twice is a coincidence, 3 times is a pattern. So you've got, Savile, Harris, Peter Ball, Andrew, Epstein, Donald Trump, all these, sex abusers of young girls. And, Charles, to me, he abused Diana. He married her knowing that he didn't love her when she was only a teenager. When he was 30, 31, he married her as a broodmare to give him children. He's just as bad as all the others. So knowing what we know now, there's no doubt the Prince's letters to Bishop Ball in the 1990s. Oh my God, you couldn't make it up, could you, Bishop Ball? In particular, his expression of sympathy for the monstrous wrongs supposedly done to him are embarrassing. Looking back, they reveal a degree of naivety on the part of the Prince. Yeah, naivety. Yeah, he didn't know. Hi, Moonbeam. Oh, I'm really annoyed about this. I just hope people can see it now. You know, I just hope they can. I have got a feeling that this is, gosh, if Virginia Giuffre, I'll tell you what, we owe her a big debt of gratitude because she's exposed this horrible family for what it is. And even the Queen, the real Queen, Queen Elizabeth, she was complicit with it all. She didn't do anything to her favourite son, you know, even though she knew what he was doing. You've got the things her own husband was up to, Louis Mountbatten. She had Rolf Harris was her favourite painter. They're all complicit. So it must be said that Charles wasn't alone around that time in demonstrating a disinclination to doubt the bona fides of a supposedly charismatic figure. So this is just so similar, isn't it, to what Andrew said about Epstein? Oh, I just didn't realise he was, he had all these girls around his island and I participated in an orgy with 8 girls with him, but I didn't know that he was trafficking young girls. This is just so similar. You know, I didn't realise. As we now know, major institutions like the church, the NHS, BBC were notably reluctant to ask uncomfortable questions and make proper inquiries. Now, I think that is what's changed a bit now, isn't it? Not completely, but, you know, people are not frightened of, that's what I've noticed on the social media. People are not frightened of saying how ridiculous the royal family are now, whereas there would have been a time I would have said it. I've got into trouble many times for my views on the royal family. You know, people get so angry with you. You know, they'll protect Andrew, or they'll protect Charlie boy, or they'll protect, but they get angry with you because you're just saying as it is. They don't like it. It's like a denial. So in the prince's case, there is a sense, as his statement says, of deep personal regret, a bit like the statement he's just released about Andrew. The regret and the feeling for the victims, but didn't care about the victims 15 years ago. Those victims have been there for years trying to plead their case. He never spoke out for them, or Shamilla, who pretends she cares about women. She couldn't give a shit about other women. She only cares about herself. In fact, the fact that the prince has opened his personal correspondence for scrutiny, is a recognition, his officials say, of the importance the prince attaches to the inquiry's work. Oh, good old Charlie boy, he opened up his personal correspondence. So really, did they go round to one of his many palaces? God, he's got so many homes. Which home would they have gone to search and go through all his personal correspondence? Or did he just show them the ones that he wanted them to see? Oh, I'd love to have a look at his phone, wouldn't you? You know, oh my God. Imagine his messages with Andrew. Oh, for fuck's sake, Andrew, you've done it again. You know, can't you just keep you know, why did you do that interview with that bitch, Emily Maitlis? You know, you can just imagine the text. They'd be frightened to put anything into a text or anything written down nowadays because it would compromise them. You know, and Andrew would be like, oh, sorry, bro. You know, I didn't think that anybody would pick up on it, you know, because years ago, nobody cared. Nobody knew what the royal family were up to. Oh, my God, all these people, these plebs wanting to know about us. Terrible. You can just imagine that conversation. And then you'll have Shamilla going, oh, God, Randy Andy, why did you have to bring us into disrepute? I've waited all these years to be queen, and now, you know, I might end up being sort of forced off the throne. God, I hope so. So the prince added that the true context and details of complaints against Ball did not come to my attention until the time of Mr. Ball's trial and conviction in 2015. Oh, God. The lies, you know, the lies, the double speak. He knew this guy was a pedo. He knew it, just as he knew Andrew was. And just trying to pretend it wasn't happening for so long. You know, why? I think, what does Andrew know about Charles? I bet Andrew knows everything about Charles. You know, he'll have all the insight. I hope Andrew does a tell-all book. Oh, he might be found HANG deed. You know, that'd be the next thing. Andrew, can't cope with it. You know, took his own life like Virginia. Do you think that might happen? Because, and who might, or would it be an accident? Charles, he'll know a lot about Charles and Shamilla, about all their relationship and everything, and what, how Charles let Diana down, and he'll know a lot about a lot of things. You know, he might be Uncle Knobhead, but he's got a lot of Charles's secrets, and that is why Charles is protecting him, sending him off to live in a mansion. Another mansion. So it's, he's coming out of the Royal Lodge. And, you know, are we all supposed to think, oh, great, he's coming out of the Royal Lodge. Oh, but he's going to Sandringham. It's another mansion, fuck's sake. God, is that supposed to be like some sort of, you know, Andrew's probably just thinking, oh, I can't wait to get to Sandringham. It's a really nice place. And so sounds like Andrew here. He says, I ceased contact with Mr. Ball once the judicial process had concluded and he was found guilty of serious offences against young people. Oh my God, it's so similar to what Andrew said about Epstein. And then, of course, it all turned out not to be true, because now it's been proven that Andrew actually did continue contact with Epstein. So we'll play again soon. We'll play again soon. That's what Andrew said to Epstein. And, you know, I just want to know. Oh, here we go. Very similar again. So it's like deja vu. This, my heart goes out to the victims of abuse. I applaud their courage as they rebuild their lives. Oh, he didn't think about that when Virginia first came forward, did he? And so often offer invaluable support to others who have suffered. It remains a source of deep personal regret. I was one of many who were deceived over a long period of time about the true nature of Mr. Ball's activities. So anyway, this was an inquiry. Of course, nothing. No, there were no. It was one of those lip service inquiries into Prince Charles at the time. Very similar to the Andrew thing. Nothing came of it. Nothing. It was all hushed up in the end. People move on, don't they? I think what the difference is now, if there would have been social media then, to the same, I mean, there was social media, of course, but to the same extent there it is now, and with, I don't think he would have got away with it. He's just as bad as Andrew, in my opinion. You know, I don't see how people can. Hi, Susanna. Yeah, I completely agree. No, this is Charles that we're talking about. This is another abuse inquiry that involved Prince Charles with a bishop who was eventually. It said Charles was naive because he continued his relationship with this bishop even after he'd been been charged with these crimes. They're all involved. They're all involved. I'll tell you what, there's no difference between Andrew and Charles, in my opinion. Charles is trying his best. The whole royal family now, they're trying to cling on for survival. And they think that the British public is so thick that they'll think that a punishment for Andrew is not calling him Prince anymore and moving him into a different fantastic mansion to live. That is suitable punishment. Why is he not being charged with anything? Why is he not in prison like Ghislaine Maxwell's in prison? Why? You know, if he, as I say, if it was your brother, my dad, my son, my cousin, my uncle, my nephew, they'd have to go to court. But not Andrew. Not if you're part of the royal family, you don't. And Charlie boy just trying to protect the monarchy. That's what he's trying to do. He doesn't give a shit about the victims. He never cared about them for years. He didn't care about Peter Ball's victims till they were sort of chucked in his face. And Peter Ball, he doesn't care about anyone until he has to care or has to pretend he cares. You know, he could have come out, done this years and years ago. But do you know why he can't? Because he's complicit. Because he you know, he's involved the royal family in general. Look, Rolf Harris. There's Ghislaine on the throne. There's Ghislaine and Epstein at the Royal Lodge. Charlie boy, friendly. Listen, there's millions of these. I can only put up a certain. I think I need to maybe put a video together of all the different. This is not the only picture of Charles with Jimmy Savile, or the Queen, or any of the royal family. Louis Mountbatten. So he's now going to be going by his name. He was a pedo. The liars. He doesn't sweat. I mean, you could just go on forever, couldn't you? They're just taking the mickey out of the British people. And these are still princesses. Now, it's not their fault what Andrew did, but they have stuck by him for years. Also, they've been involved in a lot of the scams and schemes for money. Why are they still going to be princesses? I tell you, this isn't going to be the end of it. There's no way this is going to be the end of it. And you know what? This woman, I've listened to her family talking, and you know, they were upset because she hasn't lived to see this day that at least Andrew has been stripped of his prince title. Don't forget, this was Virginia then when she was trafficked. 17 years old. And he denied all knowledge. All the royal family over the years have come down on Virginia, saying she's a liar and she's this, that, and the other. Now suddenly they care about the victims. Suddenly, well, it's too late for Virginia because she's dead, because she took her own life earlier this year, possibly. So she's not here to see it all. They should have cared more when she was alive. Yeah, where was the caring then? The only reason is they're coming out with that statement now is because they can see the way things are going. People, you know, I've never known. So in my lifetime, I don't really remember, apart from maybe when Diana died and people were annoyed with the Queen, weren't they? Because they thought that the Queen didn't show enough sympathy. But I've never known a scandal like this. And the British public are anti now. Over 50% of the British public on a Good Morning Britain poll, over, I think it was 53% or something like that, saying that it should be the end of the monarchy. You know, Charlie Boy is not popular. Shamilla is definitely not popular. You know, she's horrible. Everybody knows she's horrible. And we haven't forgotten about Diana. We're not people of my age. And then younger people coming up who maybe don't remember anything about Diana, but they're, you know, they've got the benefit of social media. They can see what the royal family are up to. You know, we didn't know years ago, like my parents' generation, you never knew what the royal family was doing except when they appeared on the telly or whatever. You know, nobody really investigated into them. You know, there was the scandal of Edward, who abdicated and went off to America, didn't he, with Wallis Simpson, you know, years ago. But nowadays, you can't get away with things, even if you are the royal family, because young people are too savvy. Older people remember Diana and will never forgive Charles for that. I certainly won't. I've never liked him. He's a big spoilt brat himself. You know, remember, did you see him whinging about the pen when he was signing for his coronation? Hey, bloody pens, you know, bloody pens. Oh, it always happens. What a big baby he is. You know, that's what royal dynasties, the sort of people that they produce in the end. You know, all these sort of, what's the word, royal dynasties, or like Rome was the same, wouldn't it? You know, these inherited titles. In the end, they all, you know, it all goes wrong. It all goes pear-shaped sooner or later. I just glad to see it happen in my lifetime. I never thought I would see it in my lifetime, but I do feel it's all going pear-shaped. And I don't think William and Kate can save the monarchy, you know, because they've got their own problems going on. You know, William looks as miserable as sin. He's got, you know, people know about the affairs he's had, and they know about his pegging things. You know, you can't hide anything now. Kate, now she's coming under criticism because she's, you know, she said she had cancer and everybody sort of went behind her and felt sorry for her. And then it turns out she was off skiing and, you know, like... they're liars, all of them, in my opinion, anyway. So, You know, people, thing is, people are, humans have frailties. I'm not saying that I haven't got any. I've got loads of frailties. I've done loads of things wrong in my life. What I'm saying is they put themselves above other people. They put themselves above, you know, their 15 homes, millions and millions of pounds, and, you know, and then try and make us feel like they're like normal people. They're not like normal people. Okay, I've enjoyed that rant. I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry if I've upset any monarchists. I'm not sorry at all. You know, you've got your view, I've got mine. The royal family is just should be obsolete, in my opinion. The British royal family, or modernised like some of the other European monarchies that have survived. They have modernised. The British royal family. Let's just these photos. Oh my God! If people can't see how ridiculous this looks, and I know how ridiculous it looks to other countries because I've had many students of different nationalities, and far from sorry, just looking at this, far from thinking, you know, oh, the British royal family is brilliant and what have you. They don't. It's only America thinks the royal family are brilliant. Most other European countries, they think these sort of images, look at them, for God's sake. With it, you know, and is that fur, that cloak? I mean, fur is not, you know, it's Charlie boy, I think you should know by now that fur's not in. These ridiculous crowns, you know, you can imagine Shamila, oh, at last I'm queen, I always wanted to be queen, I'll make such a better queen than that stupid Diana one. I mean, they're just ridiculous images, you know, just how ridiculous do they look? And then you get, oh, they look so regal. They don't look regal. They look ridiculous. In these modern times. Bloody ridiculous. As long as there's a royal family, there will never be social, what's the word, like social equality in the UK. There just never will be. All this grace and favour, have you noticed everyone's a baron or a lord or a, you know, that House of Lords is another thing that they use that to bribe people into going along with things. It's just horrible. It's just all corrupt. Well, I agree with you up to a point, Pamela. I don't think Charles should point fingers, but you know what you have to remember about Virginia? She did know what was happening. Yeah, she was 17. You know, at the end of the day, she was 17 years old and she had her head turned. I agree. And she says herself, she went along with it all. She even helped to recruit other girls. You know, so she knows that she did that. But there's a bit of a difference, isn't there, between a 17-year-old doing something and a 41-year-old, as Andrew was 41 at the time. You know, he should have known better. He should have known better. And it's always the older person should know a little bit better than the 17-year-old that gets trafficked to them. And they, you know, really, when you think about Andrew at the time, 41 years old, 2 daughters of his own, and allowed that woman to be that girl. You know, when you know, it's revolting, isn't it? Really, you know, when his girls were sort of 17, would he have liked them to be trafficked out to Epstein or to some other 41-year-old? You know, so I think that's the thing. You know, Virginia was a victim because she was so young, and she's come out and she's been brave enough to talk about it, and it encouraged other victims to come out. But I agree, Charles should not be pointing fingers because he's just as bad, because Diana was only 17. Anyway. But, you know, really, I mean, I don't have any sympathy for Andrew whatsoever. You know, he's led a spoiled, entitled life. He's had all the benefits that someone like Virginia didn't get. You know, so he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Really, you know, people that are lucky enough to be born into those fortunate circumstances, they should make the world better for people. Because don't forget as well, it's not only the reason that he's being not made a prince, not only because of Virginia and because of all that, it's because of his ties to China and spying. And I think there's a lot more to come out. For the royal family to do this, for Charlie Boy to do this, makes you wonder, is there more coming out that they know about and he's just trying to preempt it? Why is he doing it now? You know, why didn't he do it 15 years ago or whenever it all first came out? Why is he doing it now? There's more to come. I think it's a question of watch this space. There's more to come in this situation. But my final thoughts in this video are for Virginia, you know, and I hope she's at peace wherever she is. This is Virginia at the time. We must not forget, 17. And she's now taken her own life, sadly. She's no longer with us. So my final thoughts are for Virginia. I wish she was here to see what was happening and how the bravery she had in. Do you imagine speaking out against the royal family? Oh my God, or speaking out against Epstein. The power of that man. You know, you're talking about super rich people with power versus a 17-year-old girl that had her head turned. Do you know what I mean? So, exactly. Virginia was trafficked. It wasn't, it was voluntary. She admits that herself. She had her head turned. She was recruited, wasn't she, at Mar-a-Lago? She was working at Mar-a-Lago at Donald Trump's place. And this was her then. You know, I don't know if you've got daughters, but you remember if you have got daughters or nieces or, you know, grandchildren. This is Virginia. When Andrew, who was 41, you tell me that's okay and that you could blame Virginia for it. You can't. It's ridiculous. So my last thoughts are for Virginia. I'll be back later on tonight with a Halloween stream, and yeah, I agree with you there, Pamela. Where are the other men? Why is it only Ghislaine Maxwell who's in prison for this? Andrew will never go to prison. He's not even been questioned by the police. But any other person who's on that list, they need to release these files. Yeah, there's that the ex-Israeli Prime Minister as well. Why has he not been prosecuted? Why is it only Ghislaine Maxwell now that is in prison? A woman, you know, and I'm not saying she's innocent. She's not, but it seems strange to me. Why aren't all the others in prison as well? Anyway, my thoughts are for Virginia. I hope you're at peace, Virginia. I really do. And thank you for everything you've done for these victims in being brave enough to come out and talk against the richest and most powerful people in the world. And all that she took, all the abuse that she took through it, more abuse, for being honest and for being brave. I just hope you're at peace, Virginia. I really do. Bless you. Okay, I'll see you really soon in the next video. And until then, may your God go with you. Bye.